We're back for Game 3 between Schalke 04 and Team RB. With so much on the line, neither team will want to give the other an inch. It is so close between these two teams, Stress, and both games have had opportunities and mistakes. I was looking for a nice word. I was looking for a good way of saying
Baron
mistakes.
hates everyone
Basically,
this
yeah.
series. He doesn't want anybody getting to the promotion tournament. That has been probably the biggest area of failure for both teams in both games. Weirdly set up, but I think we want to look at the positives. Positives of both sides of the coin.
I am positive going for Baron is a mistake.
Fair, and maybe that actually would solve some of the issues in this. But first of all, we look at the way Schalke have played out. I think the way they've used Memento has been pretty good, especially in the early engages. The things like cancelling the Monsoon, looking to try and get the fight started, works basically against any support that isn't that Janna, like cancelling a lot of these important ultimates, getting the cask through. But the Janna was just too good at disengaging, and that's where the RB strengths come through, is they denied so many key fights in the early game that Schalke kind of ended up heavily on the back foot.
And we have seen RB having these strong early games. In the first game, Schalke were able to get a few skirmishes for their favor, able to steal away that Baron as well, and that got them back into the game. RB, when they went ahead in a quite dominant fashion, when they focused around Tal and Mujin, that's where we saw them really be able to snowball away. And even though they lost a Baron in the mid-game, they were still able just to push it away from Schalke 04. He's so comfortable.
Memento sees the light, ban Janna, written in the ceiling, written in the stars at this point. I feel like that's step number one for Schalke. Step number two, maybe get Memento on a jungler that... I still like Gragas. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Gragas, and I think you can still make it work. I just think I want to see him have equal amount of impact, and lo and behold...
That's the Janna ban straight away from Schalke, who have chosen the blue side for this game. RB will take away the Zac. Last time they were blue, it was Zac, Caitlyn, Lucian. They have banned Lucian in every single game thus far.
Of course, we don't talk too often about this. Dynamic side selection means that Schalke, being the highest seeded team coming into this, chose their initial game side selection before the series starts. Every other game from there, games 3 and 5, Schalke can choose at the end of the previous game. They have 5 minutes to decide. So that's why they're saying blue side again. We know that we want to ban Janna. We know we can target out some of these other bans like the Gragas. We don't want to see Mugen get onto.
And RB do get the selection of
Yes.
games 2 and 4 as well, which is important to note.
Correct.
But because they had the worst season, the inferior season record to Schalke 04, Schalke get 3 picks if it goes all the way to game 5. Elise ban finally here from Schalke 04, and a Caitlyn taken away by Team RB. Expect to see a Lucian if they stick with the trend they have established.
Yeah, I kind of would like to even see, not the Kalista necessarily, the Thresh, I think Norskeren would go. Or you can go outside the box. The Tahm Kench provided so much threat in the first series that I think Schalke will likely prioritize it on the second rotation of this draft.
First pick Maokai once again. Worked out so well for them last time. And they have the opportunity to grab the tree early on and get it in the roots of their composition.
Kalista and then the Thresh, if we believe the first draft, would be what Cedrian and Kasing would be looking for.
And that lane was very strong for them
Yeah.
as well. That was one of the key components of their composition.
Here could be the adaptation if they do lock this Braum in, which, while Kalista Braum doesn't necessarily have the greatest laning synergy, normally Braum likes to sit a little bit further back and play the defensive role. You still can, of course, engage on people using the Winter's Bite passive, lock people down. You have a lot of crowd control in the mix. It is good defensively against a lot of the tank setups, but it opens up a couple of other things like the trunk.
I quite like going for this Jarvan once again here from Team RB. Tal can play it. We've seen him play it throughout the split. Alongside that, Mugen had a very good performance on it in the last game. So it gives you this flexibility and allows you to make Schalke have to make some decisions here. Have to make decisive decisions.
Decisive decisions. We love that phrase. Schalke, if the Tahm Kench isn't picked up here, I would be surprised, but it's another frontline champion that comes through, and they see Alistar. I like it because you have to take it away from the Kalista. That's one of the reasons why they're taking this here. It does give freedom over to RB once again in the laning phase, but Schalke have proven they can pick like the scaling AD carries to go with this setup and don't care about the laning phase themselves.
So actually, I think something this makes RB do here is decide if they want to pick a support or a top matchup. Because if they go support, you want to take Thresh probably into the Alistar. It's a relatively good matchup for the Thresh. But you could go for a carry top laner.
Right.
Against the Nut.
I think you pick up the top lane matchup here. The other option in my mind would be mid lane. Although there are so many mid laners available, you can leave that till after the second phase. I like this because, look, the Gnar, decent in the lane itself, but the way Mugen came topside to help out Tal is what put it in favor of the Camille, the matchup that ends up winning. So while Schalke theoretically have that winning lane matchup, it was the camp that actually ended up helping them for RB in game 1. Likely to turn attention to some sense of mid laners here. The blind pickable ones going to be dropped off the board. Wouldn't be surprised to see a LeBlanc taken away here. Syndra as well has worked out well.
Other option is you have supports available for Team RB here. The Thresh and the Rakan are things that Kasing has shown himself very adept at. He could even go for something like a Zilean, which is something we've seen him pick a couple of times throughout the split.
Yeah, Kasing's special. Always used to hover Zilean when he was in the LCS. Did like playing it. Always was a strength of his, but at the same time, it was not exactly the best support in a lot of the meta. Zilean did get changed a whole bunch. His ult doesn't work in the way that you used to when you play him support a whole lot.
Have to see what they do decide to pick. Team RB banning away the mid laners. There's still that Vladimir left on the cards for either team if they want to take that. Galio is going to be the final ban from Schalke 04. So once again, we see a composition very similar to their Game 1 comp, only the Tahm Kench swapped out for the Alistar thus far. And Team RB are looking towards that Game 2 top lane focused lineup.
So if you go support here for Kasing, maybe the Rakan that you mentioned previously, you then look towards the mid lane for the last pick. Morgana's an old favorite of Kasing's.
Works really well into the Alistar as well.
Very well into Alistar and Maokai and Gnar because it's difficult to break through the black shield for these tanks. Tristana, no real, difference here from the other games that we've seen.
No real
Tristana makes a
surprises.
lot of sense, yeah.
And we'll have to see what Koda decides to pick up as their final mid laner. RB going for a composition that they've played basically in the last game. Just a slight switch out with the support being changed from Janna to Morgana.
I was going to say, I don't think you blind pick Aurelion Sol here. The Corki, however, blind pickable, but now we might just see the likes of the Syndra come out from MagiFelix again. Had a good game, knows he'll have the lane presence in the early game if he wants to take it.
So many options left open. Syndra, LeBlanc are the big two that spring immediately to mind, and MagiFelix has yet to really show up. His Syndra game last game was strong, but he did lose out in the laning phase, and they're going to go for the Vladimir instead, a MagiFelix special.
Now it's a scaling matchup where you're looking for team fights, you're looking to aggressively play out alongside Cedrian, play out those team fights. I don't know how much I like this as a lane matchup because you're going to get shoved in by the Corki, who typically gives up a lot to most mid laners in the early part of the laning phase. Now Vlad can't punish too heavily.
How can Team RB punish on the rest of the match? Because they've shown us they want to play the lanes aggressively. Is there a composition that can do that apart from that mid lane?
Kalista Morgana is going to push very heavily in the bottom lane. That's one of the bases that RB will work from. I'm expecting to see Muujin camp again for Tal in the top side of the map, and you look to open up areas on the map that side of things. This does, however, give Schalke a little bit more emphasis early game when it comes to having stronger top and mid laners. You can help out Memento a little bit better. Upset and Oscar should be safe in the lane. And then you're playing out for team fights later. You've got the scaling threats of Tristana, the Corki. You've got this big crowd control and frontline threat of Alistar, Gnar, Maokai. Difficult to deal with for RB.
Coming into game 3 of the series, it is all even between these two foes. Make sure you jump on Twitter, hashtag SO4win and hashtag RBWin with your favorites. This is the point in which that stage experience really starts to pay dividends. When you've got a little bit into it, when you've perhaps got a little bit tired after 2 long games. We're over an hour of gameplay into this best of 5 series, and you have to start to think fatigue may play a part. We're onto the Summoner's Rift for the 3rd game of the day. It's Schalke 04 taking on Team RB.
To put it in perspective, last week's series had practically ended by now. Giants had walked all over wind and rain, whereas this time it's a lot more back and forth. We know we have at least 2 games still to play out here.
Alongside that stress, across the course of the Challenger split, we are now 2-2 between these two teams. So if it was a best of 5, this would be the deciding game. But over this best of 7 from the split,
this isn't how this
still got
works.
3 more games to go. Pretty sure it is. It doesn't really matter because it's all even anyway.
because it's even, but this is a best of 5.
It is
the
a best of
important
5.
thing.
You're
There's
right.
no best of 7s.
I just
best
like
of
these
11s.
long-term stories, and something that
it's fair.
Kasing has shown us long-term, if you count this game and the last as long-term, is this start without pots. He's going Rejuve Bead and that medallion to start us off.
I don't think he's going to be going GP5 on Morgana. I mean, he might do, but probably has a little bit more in the focus of laning stats.
He's got 11 AP.
I'm
so
going to find out. Actually.
we will find out. We'll find out exactly what he's decided to go. And RB, once again, looking for that focus up towards the top lane. Muujin is going to start on the bottom side of the map, as expected. Memento could actually look for a super leash here, something we have seen from Maokai. You set up those saplings and then allow your support and AD carry to take it. These are quite closely spaced, so I don't think he's going to get the optimal amount of damage out of those saplings.
The important thing, Medic, is this now means he's not going to get invaded by a Nidalee. And yeah, he does actually get good spacing on the damage. It's fine. He's not going to get invaded heavily here.
Okay, so this is really interesting, Stress. He was pathing down towards bot, and there was actually a ward that spotted him, and then he decides to go away from it. So that's really interesting. Perhaps RB knew something we didn't.
Well, one thing that RB could be looking to spot out here is a very cheesy play that we've seen mostly directed towards the middle lane, where a Maokai would look to go aggressive. Now, the key thing that would be able to work here is Kalista struggles to point-and-click CC, like the Twisted Advance, and Morgana doesn't have the Black Shield at rank 1. Taken the Dark Binding, I believe, Kasing has. Now the Black Shield is there. Importantly, Memento didn't have Twisted Advance either. He actually had the Q and the E from that. Of course, that helps Maokai clear early on. Perhaps he hadn't skilled it, and as I checked, he had. But that would have been one thing that RB were worried about, and actually played around using that ward that you mentioned.
Mujin is going to go aggressive here. There was a ward for RB on here. Momento's
it's
going to go
not
in. That's a
happening
lot
again.
of damage, but here comes the sapling as well. Momento's forced back. No mana left on him. Kadril was on his way up as well.
Here's why it doesn't work quite as well. The Kadril coming up is the important thing here because the Vlad isn't able to push out quite as effectively. It's reset though. Mujin, oh, he's doing it again.
Memento's still low on mana, but the sap magic will heal him up. Mujin's
this
looking for
actually
this
isn't
trade.
as
He has
good.
to flash away. Here comes Camille. Tal's on his way. The smite. Kadril tries to come in as well, but RB will be able to force Memento.
Tal! He's gone on him!
Oh, you beauty for first blood. Kadril's caught out as well as Tal now has the red buff. We'll just try and retreat out through the jungle. RB with first blood and 1,000 gold lead.
Oh my, this worked out way better when it should have worked out way worse for RB. Memento gets spotted on the ward. Mujin comes back in at like 200 health and says, okay, I'm just going to try and take your wolves away, try and deny your recall. What? Tal is it? Well, Tal roams down, is able to jump all the way through onto Memento and get the kill. That shouldn't have happened like that, but it did. And again, RB hyper aggressive into the jungle. Didn't matter that Cable was able to roam this time. It was Smitty J that didn't recognize he was needed until it was too late.
Now, there's a difference between this and Game 1, because in Game 1, Mujin spent a lot of time being very aggressive in the jungle and didn't actually get a huge amount out of it. They stole a red buff, they stole a couple of camps, but Memento didn't die, and he was able to scale up, actually going unkilled in the entire game. This game, Tal now has a red buff up towards that top side. You've denied a buff from the Maokai, and Mujin can look up towards that top side for a gank once again.
Yeah, if he can get that gank onto Smitty J, that would be catastrophic here. Of course, the plant will signal exactly where Mujin is. And I have an update. He is running GP5 Yellows and Quince on
baby.
Morgana, which I haven't seen every single Morgana game that has been played, but I know that is not the most standard thing in the world. So
If he gets Ardent Sensor, that's where we're looking at it, Stress. Come on.
yeah, I know. I'm like, I can see. So Kasing did put out a tweet the other day that was along the lines of, okay, I give in, and just a picture of the armor and gold rune setup. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good to cast. I did not anticipate him bringing it out on the Morgana. You can see a little bit less of a focus of rushing purely straight towards that Ardent Sensor. Goes Boots for now, looking to roam a little bit.
And once again, we see Cedrian on the Callista go for the Xerxes Greaves early on. Does give them the opportunity to try and catch out Kadril in the mid lane, but Kadril is slightly safer this time. Not on a Galio, instead on the Corki, who always has the Valkyrie to get away. Kasing doesn't seem to care about that. He's positioning around towards this mid lane.
He's on the roam. Already looking to go. He's literally on his own here.
Like, but Kadril doesn't know that.
Kasing is purely like, I'm just stacking up my quest at this point. I'm just walking in, holding the wave. Kasing is supporting other lanes. This is
The life of a true support, Stress.
yeah, look, Magic Felix is going to get there. Now he's like, okay, it's not going to push under my turret. I can actually hold this in the lane.
You have to remember, Kasing was playing professionally at the time that it was the jungle support duo. So you'd have like Callista, Alistair Jarvan roaming around together.
Yeah.
So he's used to being in other lanes than bot lane. He's used to traversing the map, Stress.
I used to have to, in picks and bans, tell him not to pick Teleport Ignite LeBlanc in competitive play when we were in a semi-final. But nevertheless, Kasing has always been known for his roaming patterns. Now he comes back into the lane. Mujin is here with him. And now they look to go aggressive into the bottom lane. Mujin actually can't find his way in this time. There's a ward that spots him out, and that's why Schalke are on the retreat. I must say, while Schalke have done a good job in the mid game, I'm left a little wanting when it comes to their early game play from Schalke. And now they aren't drafting for it. They've been taking themselves Alistair lanes. They've been picking these scaling or at least tank setup junglers, which means you're a little less focused on the early game. So it is understandable in the setup. But considering the hype around this team and how people were talking about, oh, they're so good, they beat Giants in the laning phase, everything's amazing. Not quite seeing it come to fruition yet.
I think another part of that is specific lanes that won for Schalke the last time these two teams met aren't doing that this time. I'm looking at top lane because Smitty J has always been a carry for Schalke. He's kind of been a silent carry as well because he doesn't get massive score lines, but he wins his lane and he stops the enemy top laner from really being able to snowball. On average, the last time these two teams met, he was 10 CS up. at the 15-minute mark, which is a dominant performance. Here, he's been able to extend that gold lead, but with Tal getting an early kill, teleporting back into the lane now with a Sheen and even a Cull, Tal is accepting that he wants to scale up into the lake.
Yeah, accepting that he just wants to get to Trinity Force a little faster, the second item that comes through it, maybe even that Duskblade that comes out.
He missed the
later.
CS on his Cull. Disappointed.
Wasted. Inefficient. Important passage of play happened there. As Tal TP'd back to the top side, he was holding his TP for a moment or two longer because he was seeing whether Schalke were committing to the tower and whether Muujin, Cedrian, and Kasing were able to make a play on bottom side. They had pushed up. Muujin actually took the enemy red buff. Both junglers took the opposite side's red. And there was this moment where they were looking at the play potential on the bottom side. Didn't actually go for it, so Tal TP's back into the lane as soon as he sees Schalke backing away. But the one lane that isn't having as much pressure because Corki into Vlad is always going to be push power into Corki is this middle lane. And MagiFelix, once again, in a matchup where he just needs to wait.
Yeah. Happy just to scale up in this composition.
Ooh,
Tal is going to jump onto Smitty. He's almost got Mega, and Memento's just around the corner, flashes in. The Mega comes out. There's the Nature's Grasp as well into Anar. The stun. Is this going to be enough as Kadril comes in with a package? And that is the sort of Corki play we want to see. Schalke get themselves a kill.
Good roam out from Kadril. The package, we had seen it in the lane earlier. Hang on, Tal wants to go aggressive.
Re-engage from Tal because MagiFelix was on his way up. The Hexag Ultimatum into the Hemoplague, and an Ignite is not going to be enough to burn through that Corki. MagiFelix will get a heal, but they just force the flashes out from Smithy J and Kadril.
Whole lot used by both teams there on that engage. You can see Cedric now with the Black Shield. Dark Binding connects. Norscarin on the back of that trade.
No damage.
It takes like a little bit, and then the heal comes through. So this is the engage. Tal jumps onto Smitty J, and again, we saw this in the previous game where Tal and Muujin, their first engage is right onto that Mega Gnar timing, and Muujin gets the worst end of this. From there, up comes MagiFelix into the exchange, trying to get towards Smitty J to try and get this kill. Good flash out from Smitty J, doesn't get caught by the hook shot out of Tal. MagiFelix, the old switcheroo, comes through, gets the Hemoplague, heal back on. Nothing that Memento can do from here.
And a big thing about how Schalke have to react to the last game is they need to be anticipating those ganks in the top lane. And that's exactly what Memento was doing. He even flashed the wall when I believe the Blast Cone was alive because he wanted to be there just that slightly bit quicker to make sure that RB wouldn't just take down Smitty before the fight started. Great Nature's Grasp from him as well to reset the fight. RB, about 600 gold ahead, but across the board, it's very even between these two teams. And we're getting to the point where the early game starts to fall away, perhaps even laning phase in the next 5 minutes or so will start to deteriorate, and we'll see more team fights and more of this objective play from these two teams.
Right, the difficulty with RB's team fights is for a long time in this, they're going to want to try and kite back somewhat. That's one of the uses of this Morgana, trying to kite back away. But look, the follow is so strong, but Fate's Call comes through. Easy way of getting out of the fight there for RB, but that becomes more difficult now. The Kalista ultimate is down, don't have that option. Schalke committing onto the tower in the bottom side, and look, even mid tower is low in favor of Schalke. So this is just small little plays that are going to add up over time.
And it's something that Schalke have done so well across the splitter. These small plays, the small rotations that get you a little bit more damage, playing the lanes properly. Kadril's had a very good performance on the Corki thus far. Has been able to get about a 7 CS lead in that lane as well.
But it's tower health. I know you say he's happy to be at this spot, and it's the tower health that is the key factor here, because look, Memento's going to come in. This is to get the tower, not necessarily to look for the kill here, because they know they can't kill MagiFelix, but they burn through his health, trying to get anything else. He's no summoners, remember, but Muujin is around. That's why MagiFelix is sticking around by the tower. It's vision control that they get from that play initially.
And now we see the reversal of junglers as well. Early on, it was Muujin going aggressive, making the plays, and now he's the one having to react to Memento, who's on the front foot and looking to push onto these towers. That tower is so low in the bottom lane, and Cedric and Kasing will force Norscarin back. Muujin is on his way. Norscarin does have flash. Teleport's going to come in as well. Flash back from Norscarin, and he misses on the Pulverize. Here comes Muujin for the knockup. That Alistar is done. The Cataclysm onto Smitty. He hops out of the walls, but perhaps we'll see Tal put down a wall of his own. The Hextech Ultimatum available. RB decide not to pull the trigger.
I'm actually surprised Tal completed his teleport there, because Smitty J had channeled a second or two earlier, and the Alistar was already dead. I think the communication at that point by RB may have broken down. Tal could have got damage onto the top tower, which would have been welcome lead in one of the lanes. We'll take another look at this trade, and of course Norska in an upset trying to get the push on, but Jarvan had been spotted coming down the river. Upset knows he's got to clear as much of this distance, and what should have been a pushing lane for Kasing and Cedrian hasn't been because of these skirmishes. This time it doesn't connect for Schalke Nulfear. They're able to get away after only losing one, but they've been pushing the tower again and again because of the trades in the bottom lane, burning the summoners, burning the ultimate specifically out of Cedrian, that then allows this Tristana and the Alistar to push up in the lane. That tower is going to die now as Upset touches it, and the same is going to happen in the mid lane. K-Roll looking to get that tower for themselves as well.
And it doesn't matter what gold lead you extend in the laning phase. One turret is enough for Schalke 04 to get the gold back in their favor, and they will look towards that mid lane tower as well. Void, Rift Herald is on the map. If perhaps Mugen and Tal want to go for that, he's now got the Tiamat alongside that Sheen and is halfway to completing his cull. Tal instead says he wants to go mid. Can't quite get the gank off onto K-Drill. And coming back to that communication point you were discussing, Stress, in the last game we saw RB with some very strong team fights, but it wasn't always a prolonged team fight. They tended to be more burst orientated with a huge amounts of damage coming down. You have to remember Mugen and Tal are Korean, and there perhaps will be a communication barrier when you get to these longer team fights and when you get to calling out teleports and calling out targets. Tal will jump away from Memento and Norskeren, and this tower is going to fall in the top lane in not too long a time.
Mugen is here so they can defend it for now. It's still got over half the health of the tower, so it is a committed play out of Schalke that would be needed to take that tower down. But you've got to look at the mid lane. That's where Schalke can easily crack the next objective. And it means Cedrian actually has to come out of the bottom lane. There's a lot of wards that would have spotted him there, but he can't afford to commit onto the tower because there's no way of RB of equalizing the numbers. Kasing actually on a ward here looking for a pick in the middle lane, but it's not to be found. No real way of him picking that up.
And once again, Mugen delaying his sweeper ever so slightly. You have got the Eye of the Oasis on Kasing. It looks like he's going Ardent Sense, a second item as well. But there's no sweeper on towards that Jarvan yet, prioritizing getting vision up towards that top side of the map to try and keep Tal a little bit safer from those dives.
But without the camping, at least the successful play from Tal and Mugen, it becomes difficult for RB to play against this Schalke lineup because K-Drill with the TP, SmidEJ with the TP, they're not available now, but they will be soon, can play out on the side lanes, and at that point RB have to force fights. They have to try, force fights, force objectives to drag those TPs out, which you've got Jarvan, that's a great start for this, but then you're looking at pick from the Morgana, the Dark Binding maybe as an option. Difficult to land, very telegraphable. Especially with these wards. This has been good warding out from Schalke. Knowing the regular spots that Kasing is likely to sit in, and then being able to spot him out from a long way away.
And we talk about the adaptation from teams across games, Stress. This is what we see from Schalke 04 here, putting wards in positions that they know Kasing can come from, that they know they can get ganked from, and pressuring up towards the top side of the map when needed as well to shut Tal down. Even after he got that first kill, they're going to get 3 turrets you expect before RB even get 1 here. Although MagiFelix is pushing down towards that bottom side, and RB are doing an okay job of holding on to those last slivers of HP.
MagiFelix actually running Knight. Didn't have a whole lot of kill pressure in the laning phase. May end up being useful if they can get it to work in team fights. To cut through some of the healing at that point.
Yeah, on
Sap
Maokai
magic,
especially.
yeah. It's fine. I just feel like it hamstrings him a little bit because look at this fight. Now there's no way of MagiFelix getting there.
Fate's Call pulls them out though.
Yeah.
And that's the strength of a Morgana. They will get a tower in the bottom lane, and that pushes them just slightly ahead in the gold, even though they are a turret behind. Mountain Drake on the cards as well as Mugen sets up around it. And instead just decides to go for the Scuttle Crab. Gold across the board, incredibly even between these two teams. We're starting to see some item spikes here, Stress.
You wouldn't believe it, would you? Would you? Guess what's giving some of the gold lead to Team RB?
Gold per 5 runes.
Some
Stress.
of it, yeah. I mean,
gold
Kasing
per 5.
is already 800 gold up on his opponent's support.
And
we will stop tracking this at one point.
No,
but
we won't,
It's
'cause
novel. It's
they-
actually fun.
They have a 300 gold lead, and without those gold per 5s and without that talisman, the Eye of the Oasis side, they would be behind in gold. And Kadril is going to get caught out. There's the flash. So the jump across the wall and the Hemoplague as well. Kadril has no way of getting away. There's another kill for Team RB, and especially a good kill for Magic Felix, who has struggled thus far.
There's the kill threat. You said he's struggling as well. The kill threat comes through with the Ignite, comes down. Easy pickup from Mugen. And we talked about how they don't have another teleport on that Vladimir. Well, if you attack whoever's sitting in the lane against the Vlad, suddenly it doesn't matter whether there's 2 teleports if one of them is already getting engaged upon. So it'll be easy to take it down.
Looking for that Mountain Drake as well. Will be their first dragon of the game. And Schalke 04 have a torrid affair of getting dragons across this series. I think they only have 1 thus far, actually. In game 2, they got a Cloud. That is the only dragon that they have taken. It's an objective they tend to struggle with, much more confident around the Baron. Actually, RB, across Challenger Series, had 10 Barons that they took and 9 that they lost, whereas Schalke 04 were a lot more confident in their Barons. 14 taken, only 5 lost across the split.
They were ahead a lot of the time in their games. You look at the likes of Origin, PSG didn't exactly hold up a lot of the competition against Schalke 04, at least not as much as the PSG and Origin lineups would have liked them to. So you look at some of this objective control that Schalke have had. I think the fact that RB and Schalke met so early on in the split may be quite telling. That a 1-1 split, now they're quite even against each other at this point. Both teams have consistently improved and shown some sense of weaknesses throughout the split. So neither team perfect, which is what makes this a very exciting matchup. Unlike the Giants Wind and Rain matchup, where Giants weren't perfect, but there was still a big, massive wealth of, or at least gap between the two of them.
The skill disparity here is much more an even one, because I think you can see the disparity. RB are better in the lanes. They tend to be mechanically stronger, but Schalke 04 have a better sense of macro, and their team fights tend to be a little bit more coordinated, and their calls seem to be just that little bit tighter than Team RB. And when you look at this game and the way it's setting up, we're getting to that 20-minute mark. It's very even, only 800 gold between the two. RB haven't been able to snowball anything away from Schalke 04, and usually that is a good sign for Schalke.
But I wonder whether it is the experience factor coming into this. I wonder whether Schalke, as an organization, seeing how they dominated last split, then come up against a kind of a brick wall. I wonder whether they are purposefully not playing aggressive in the lanes, so that they say, okay, we need to be able to play out from an even footing and get objective control, look towards things like Rift Herald plays, look towards tower play instead. And maybe that's why we're not seeing kind of blindly aggressive plays, drafting for the later game, drafting more neutral lanes rather than just crushingly oppressive, because look, they can open up a slight gold lead once again for themselves just by using the Rift Herald.
They did manage to secure that Rift Herald while we were prattling on Stress, and they use it in the mid lane now. I believe it was during my prattle session that they got it. 4 towers to 1 now in favor of Schalke 04, and this is what we want to see from them, and it's something we've seen from them across their entire journey in Challenges. This strong macro, this ability to pull the enemy team across the map and then take the engages they want. However, Tal's on the backline onto Smitty J. He's already taken out of the fray. Here comes the Cataclysm, the Hemoplague as well. Team RB secure 2 kills, and they want a lot more. Upset's going to have to flash or heal away from this, because Tal is not going to give it up. Kasing cannot quite connect the Q. And Tal jumps onto Kadril with a continued chase. RB will back away for the time being. They do get 2 kills, and they stop Schalke in their tracks.
I really hope they're not rushing to Baron right
I hope they are, Stress. I want them to. I want them to go for the Baron.
Okay,
I want to see more steals.
They're backing away. Okay, they got the team fight win. They don't need to over-push onto this. They're trying to get some sense of vision control, and that will be enough for them for now. That fight starts out with Upset hitting Kasing about 3 or 4 times. Looks like he's about to crush through him. He's on 2 items, Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, and Kasing drops pretty low. Upset dodges out on the binding. You can see the autos coming through from Upset. Then they go on to Mugen, but leave Tal unanswered. Smitty J doesn't have Mega Gnar. Mugen goes in, gets the Cataclysm. No way of Memento getting out of that. He did have his flash available, but at that point he knows it's already done, and he ends up falling. Tries to get the flash for flash. Oh, ever so slightly off. Good dodge from Upset. Kasing didn't quite get the flash, but
you can't really fight in those zones
Nope.
against Team RB. Cataclysm, Hemoplague, Hexag Ultimatum, a Callista who's got Runans. You do not want to fight in confined spaces against Team RB. It's like a bull in a china shop.
Seeing red?
No, they'll crash into everything and destroy
Right,
it.
I know. It's fine. I was trying to go to the next level on that. But
okay. See, I understand where you're going.
Yeah.
But you know how I read studies, and you know how that's like, as a medical professional, I've read through a lot of like different studies and papers and articles. There's actually an article relatively recently that I heard about that shows that bulls don't care about the color red. It's not the fact that it's a red sheet, it's the fact that the matador is gesticulating wildly and baiting them into charging, rather than the fact it's red. I think bulls might actually be colorblind, but I'm not 100% sure on that fact. I just know they don't care about the color red.
Are you training to be a vet now?
No,
Is that
it's the weird things, weird places my mind goes, and at the moment, Schalke are looking to go up for this river vision control.
Is that one of the weird places your mind goes up, river vision control?
Sometimes. Sometimes
I
it
mean,
can be
it's
a little bit of an oddity.
You just lie in bed postulating about vision control in the river.
That sounds a lot more like something Deficio would do than I would
Probably.
do. So, I want to see more vision, guys.
He's
How
like,
do you win
"I-
the game? You talk about vision, and then you don't get to talk about anything else because people don't have adequate vision control stress.
That is fair. All I'm remembering from that is you started with as a medical professional, which normally you trust, and you got to trust at this point that Baron is going to be the bad point for both of these teams. Magi Felix may be caught, but that's a Hemoplague. Should heal him up.
Hemoplague. Great Sanguine Pool. The Nature's Grass comes out, but it doesn't connect. Magi Felix doesn't even burn a Summoner to get away from Schalke there. And look
Tal
at
is
Tal
pushing.
once again. He's got Trinity Force. He's on his way to the Ravenous Hydra. He's completed the cull, and all he wants to do is sit in the side lane and push up against these towers.
Oh, they're just going to stop the recalls here. Trying to get the Tormented Soil does stop the recall. Should be another tower. It's only Norscaron that has managed to get back here. So this actually is a treacherous situation for Schalke because Norscaron cannot commit to that. If Norscaron commits, he can't even hold the tower. It doesn't have any damage output, but Mujin treads a little far forward in the mid lane. Cedrion's going to have to come to his rescue. The binding actually lands!
And they're going to Cataclysm in, but Smitty J just comes out of Mega at the right moment. Kasing was called in with a Fate's Call, and Memento gets onto the backline. That's Cedrion dead, and Upset will rip through Kasing as well. It's a triple for Tristana, and now Schalke are going to go for the Baron.
I cannot emphasize enough how crucial that Smitty J immediate ult into the Cataclysm wall. Jarvan basically betrayed himself on that engage on Upset. Tal is going to continue to push on the bottom side. Magi Felix shouldn't be able to steal here. If this actually gets stolen, it'll be the most ridiculous one of the series. He's not even going to try. Finally, a safe Baron take.
25 minutes into Game 3, and we have our first safe Baron take of the series. Let's have another look at this mid lane fight.
So Mujin goes on to Upset, trying to play the aggressive part of the jungle here. So Kasing catches Upset, so it roots him on the other side. Perfect into the wall. That basically was life or death for Upset here, and even through the exhaust, Kasing through the ultimate as well. Both members of RB died, and from what looked again to be an RB favored fight, Schalke able to turn it back around. This time Smitty J having the impact in team fights. He hasn't been crushed by Tal like they did crushed Smitty J with the camp in Game 2, and this Nara's had a whole lot more impact.
And we come all the way back to something we discussed before the series even began. Upset. This player on Schalke who's been a consistent performer for them across this split. We were concerned that when he got to the playoff stage once again, he wouldn't step up to the plate. Well, he's 3-0-0 on another late game scaling carry. He's got 3 completed items, and he is playing out of his skin.
Absolutely is. Upset. No fear on the stage this time. You can see Tal pushing in the top side still. Smitty J will answer him. Both teleports are available, but it's Schalke with the Baron buff crushing through. Memento once again. Upset. Oh, so low.
So low, and the TP is going to come in from Tal as well to try and distract Schalke. No fear. Smitty J was there. That's why Tal is half HP. Schalke will retreat from the tower for the time being.
Upset just managed to survive. Looks to be on like 200 or 300 health from that. But look, now RB don't have that teleport available. There is no window for Tal to be trying to open to keep RB at least in control of one lane.
Looks like Upset might be going to a Frozen Mallet of his own as well here, just for that extra tankiness and the ability to kite back from this RB lineup.
Because that's part of the problem is also the slows that are going to be applied from that, because RB trying to play a little bit more of a kite style with this Morgana, trying to keep stepping back in the fight once some of the initial engage has gone. You'll be able to slow down Cedrian, Kasing, MagiFelix if you can, on top of just that sustain. So at this point, very difficult for RB to balance this. If they can somehow find Upset, if they can get the ultimatum onto Upset, kill him before he can get away, maybe that's how RB actually win this fight. But Schalke in a dominant position.
Schalke will continue just to push up in this top lane. 6 towers to 4, a 1,000 gold lead, so close. Hardly split these teams at all. The Static Shiv proc, the Nature's Grasp, the Inhib Tower falls, and Schalke 04 have lost nothing thus far. They will continue to push in. The stun is going to hit the 3-man knockup as well from Norscaron as Schalke 04 step forward, Tal falls, and here comes Schalke. RB lose 2, Mujin jumps in, a great Cataclysm, but it's just far too little, far too late. Upset hopping around the battlefield and hopping towards these Nexus towers as well.
MagiFelix is going to try his best, but there's the knockup.
MagiFelix will Sanguine Pool away. The first Nexus tower falls. Norscaron does go down as well. MagiFelix and Kasing, the last hopes for RB to hold out in this game. But look at the super minions. Kadril has TP as well. He'll back and TP back in. And now RB have no way of defending. Schalke 04 are going to go 2-1 up in this series unless RB do something masterful. Kadril takes Kasing and Kadril takes the Nexus. Schalke 04 2-1 up.
Cool, calm, and collected out of Schalke for the majority of that game. They reassess what went wrong in game 2, come back with a slightly different focus on the strategy, banning away the Janna. And RB are going to have to go back to the playbook once again to try and find something new themselves. The Morgana, we could see what it was trying to do. It didn't quite have the same impact. And from there, Tal and Mujin attempting to make plays couldn't get the same lead as game 2. And it means Schalke could hang on, make sure they could get Upset into the fight, and between Upset and Cable have a massive amount of damage.
It's such a balancing act as well. It all comes down to that fight in the mid lane, you have to think. Cedrian was knocked away with the Buster Shot. Smitty J just coming out of Mega Gnar as well as they nod into that Cataclysm wall, and Schalke able to capitalize on the small advantages they had. I mean, they end the game only 4,000 gold up, and a lot of that came in the last minute and a half or so of it. It's such an even matchup between these two teams.
Very similar to game 1. We were talking after game 1, a 29-minute game. Well, another 29.5-minute game here for Schalke. The thing that Schalke have been very good at, all split long, and they're showing us once again, is when they get that significant lead, whether it's a Baron, whether it's a gold lead, past the 25-minute mark, you're in trouble if you can't hold the push, because Schalke just push, 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 and make sure they can take anything to close the game.
And I think you can come to a point now where you have to look at both of these teams and compare them to the LCS challengers, NIP and Mysterious Monkeys, and say, actually, both of these teams show us enough strengths. I think they can challenge against those LCS teams.
Yeah, I think so. I think we saw the same out of Giants last week, right? And I think for me, the 20 to 30-minute portion for Schalke seems to be the biggest strength they have, especially with Memento playing this Maokai. I think that's becoming more of a problem than a lot of the rest of the Schalke lineup, because he walks up to a tower, knows he can just ult, and suddenly the tower dies, the inhibitor starts getting pushed, and then Schalke are able to just easily take the fight.
Yeah, working incredibly well for Schalke at the moment. RB, on the other hand, just don't seem to be able to utilize their advantages properly. You have to remember, Tal got first blood and a red buff that game. Slowly scaled up into it, and yes, he was devastating at the end, but it just wasn't enough for Team RB.
I think one of the big points of where Tal slowed down is when he used that teleport down to the bottom side that ended up being for nothing, where RB had kind of already won the fight, and of course that's a team decision to make that play and actually complete that teleport, but I wonder if it had stayed top, regathered some of the CS lead, that Smitty J had accrued and put damage down onto the tower. Whether that matchup would have gone differently, because we saw him confidently play out the Camille into Nah matchup in game 2.
Right, we did. Let's have another look at that final fight where Schalke were able to crack the base. It looked at times like perhaps they wouldn't quite manage it. It looked like it was just going to be a push and then back away, but it was a great fight from them.
Maokai ultimate comes through. Watch Tal here, and watch how Schalke just immediately jump on him. As soon as they can get the damage down, they know this Camille getting into the backline is perhaps the only thing that can take out Upset. And yes, it was a long, drawn-out fight. MagiFelix had some damage, but against this Maokai in the fight, just providing frontline Memento basically untouched until he goes under the towers, even heals the majority of this back up. You see the Sap Magic power kicking in, and RB just don't have enough to take the rest of the fight. Upset just has enough damage to close the towers down, and Schalke take the third game of the series to put themselves at 2-1.
And I think you see very much the difference between Morgana and Janna as well, because
Oh,
Morgana's
yes.
black shielding people who need to avoid CC, and Janna tends to shield people that she wants to keep safe. There's a difference there.
Right.
Because you get a black shield on MagiFelix, Ardent Sensor doesn't do anything. Whereas you're shielding people who tend to be getting auto attacks off, like Cedrian or like Tal in the fights.
Right, the other half of that is the fact that Janna has that denial of a fight, whereas Morgana's ultimate, people look at it as denial. It's more of zone control, saying you can't be around the Morgana, but that does nothing for the AD carry if they're jumping on them and already getting the damage down. And that's the big difference between those two. That's why I think the Janna ban was so key in this game from Schalke.
It definitely worked out for Schalke, and RB are gearing up for a must-win fight. They are 2-1 down against Schalke 04. Find out if they can take the take us to a game 5 in just a minute.
5
We're
minutes.
on to the Summoner's Rift for the third game of the day. It's Schalke 04 taking on Team RB. He has to flash away. Here comes Camille. Tal's on his way. The smite. Cadril tries to come in as well, but RB will be able to force Tal.
He's gone on him.
Oh, you beauty for first blood. However, Tal's on the backline onto Smitty J. He's already taken out of the fray. Here comes the Cataclysm, the Hemo Plague as well. Team RB secure 2 kills, and they want a lot more.
The binding actually lands!
And they're going to Cataclysm in, but Smitty J. Memento gets onto the backline, that's Cedrian dead, and Upset will rip through Kasing as well. It's a triple for Tristana. Fear are going to go 2-1 up in this series unless RB do something masterful. Cadril takes Kasing, and Cadril takes the Nexus. Schalke 04 2-1 up.